Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is one of the best selling author, novelist, I should say. No other than Miss Jenny Ahmed.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Jenny. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, I live upstate. I live in Staten Island, New York. I'm also a nurse practitioner, and I also have my degree in genetics, which is why I do science fiction very well because I can have that base to work off of. And I have a load of kids, a load of grandkids, and I love to travel.
Indeed, Miss Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about your one of your sci-fi novel, Utopia. Can you tell us about this?
Yes, Utopia. You hear so much about science with Mars and everything, and I wanted to write a book about a one-way trip to Mars from the astronaut's perspective. And what I did is I selected my main character. Her name is Delilah. We follow, we introduce her in the very first prologue where she's a child sitting out in the cold with her parents, looking at the stars and wondering what was out there. Um, so we follow her briefly through life. We go through what the training is for an astronaut. And I've done incredible research on this book, and what astronauts go through is unbelievable. And she becomes one of the 13 astronauts. There's going to be a total of 14 scientists that go on a one way mission to Mars. It was interesting to study the way that female astronauts are treated before they go on a mission. They have to be on hormones and all this because they're not allowed to have a pregnancy in space. But in this case, they're going to be in Mars, and starting a population is going to be one of the objects of the mission. But it's a really good book. It's a journey about Delilah's life, also how 13 other scientists restart their life because they're no longer on Earth. They're in a new place. They find a new civilization. And so there's a lot of change, and you get to know the characters really, really well.
Very well said, Miss Jenny. Beautifully articulated. What urgent societal failure or personal awakening inspired you to envision this specific utopia now?
A lot of it came from the news. Always talking about the trip to Mars, when we're going to land on Mars, and they're talking about having a colony on Mars. So they're going to put a colony on Mars, but really, what are the people going to do? I mean, you got to expand your population, and there's a lot that goes into that they're not saying. Like they're always talking about, yes, we're having a mission to Mars. We're going to occupy Mars. We're going to go to Mars. So what does all that entail? So what I wrote about is what that all entails.
Indeed. Curious about everything is something else, like
That
Miss
book
Jenny.
there, Dawn's Early Light, that book scared the bejesus out of me when I was writing it. For
Mm,
several reasons. There's a lot of science in that book. It talks about a nuclear bomb that detonates under the New York Stock Exchange and in several other cities as well. But
interesting.
after the book came out, 2 months later, there was a man in Florida that got arrested by Homeland Security that he was planning on putting a dirty bomb in the sewers right under the New York Stock Exchange. That scared me. And my villain in this book, I have a vacation home upstate, and there's an urban legend about this place called the Indian Lake Blog. I won't take up much time going into it, but if you ever check up on the Indian Lake blog, there's a lot of truth to it. Basically, it was supposed to be an old CIA black ops site where they were doing mind control experiments on children. And unfortunately, most of the stuff from this blog is true, and the blogger like disappeared. It's really interesting. I don't want to take up your time. I could talk about it for hours, but that book really scared me because when I talked about what happened when the bomb went off was actual things that happened in Hiroshima. Like for example, in my book, a couple was getting married in Trinity Church in Manhattan, and when the bomb blew, it took a picture, and on the wall was their silhouettes. That was actually something that happened in Hiroshima. So all of the things that I put in my book about the radiation, even how the radiation got in the country. For example, less than 1% of all the containers that come through the port are actually inspected. And my nuclear device was put in a container with kitty litter and Brazilian nuts. And the reason why is because they're naturally radioactive. So if the customs people are walking, past the shipping containers, that'll naturally be radioactive. So it would turn positive automatically, but no one would think about it because it's got naturally radioactive ingredients in the shipping container. So there was like so much research I put in this book. It was scary. It scared me at night when I was writing it to think that something like this could really happen.
Miss Jenny, can you tell us about also the All the Kingsmen?
That
What is
I
all about?
wanted to do. The way the presidential race was going this year, it was insane. So I wanted to do something political, a good political thriller. And my political thriller was when the congresswoman was found hanging off of the balcony in the house. Uh, the president gets accused of murder. I'm not going to say if he did it or not. I will say there's some really good twists. They uncovered so many things. He was making money from the Mexican cartels to bringing in fentanyl. He was getting paid for that. There was so many things. He had a mistress. He had illegitimate children, and oh, he was such a stinker. This president was a stinker, but he was accused of killing the Speaker of the House. So that was a good book,
A
and
Speaker
and
of the House.
the way she was found hanging, her makeup was beautiful, her hair was beautiful, everything was beautiful except she was dead.
And how about the Burning Sky?
The Burning Sky is this was a fun book to write. It's about a meteor, asteroid coming, of course. And what happens is the 1% decide they're going to build bunkers and live underground. And the 1%, the other 99% are stuck up in the top of the world. They have to face everything on their own. There's no food for them. A nuclear winter hits. They have to survive in extremely, extremely cold weather. Um, and then they run into like a military base and they find some really scary things. They find that the people that were underground had developed a vaccine for themselves to combat any radiation that would be on the earth after the asteroid had landed. And unfortunately, some of those vaccines caused many bad things to happen. And I'll leave it at that. A new society gets formed, and we go from there.
Miss Jenny, let's go back to Utopia. If you had to distill its core principle into one sentence,
If I had to put utopia into one sentence,
yes.
I would say a new world was the mission, and a secret civilization changed everything.
Which utopian or dystopian authors most influence your world building?
I took it from a lot of philosophical points. You know, I wanted to do benefits. Um, I wanted to show compassion. I wanted to show justice, and that was what I did in Utopia. The name came from where the landing spot was, and the landing spot was Utopia. And incidentally, that is one of the major sites that NASA wants to land one of their missions at is in Utopia.
How does your utopian actively prevent itself from becoming dystopian?
The scientists that are on board are really committed. Like NASA had their way they wanted the mission to go, but once the scientists were off the ground, they're like, listen, we're going to be living in this world. We're going to make it a nice world, right? And they used that time that they were on the ship going to Mars. They used that time to come up with like a constitution and how they envisioned the society would be. One of the first decisions they made is that it was going to be a cashless society.
Cashless society
Cashless,
in
no cash.
cash. Okay, no cash. What cherished modern comforts or system would your utopia require us to relinquish?
Well, there was a lot of things to confront in the novel. For example, the commander of the pilot, the head of the mission, he was married, and his wife was a scientist, but she wasn't going on the mission. So everyone was thinking, okay, we're all supposed to reproduce and build the colony, but he's married. So that was like everyone was wondering, and it was something he never talked about. So it was like you don't know what's going on until like later on in the book is when you find out what
How
his
does your society navigate greed, conflict, or ambition without suppressing individuality?
that's that is a very good point because when they went on the mission, they knew this was one way. There was nothing to have. I mean, if you had all the money in the world, what were you going to do with it? I mean, they used to joke because their money, their pay was put in direct deposit. They're like, what are we going to do with it? You know, you could give us all the money in the world. What are we going to do? There's nothing here. We have to build it. So it was like it wasn't like a socialist society because everybody got, you know, obviously they got their food and they got, you know, whatever they needed. But you have a civilization here that's been discovered that they're working with, and there's just no room for greed. There's no room for greed.
Miss Jenny, why use fiction to convey this vision? How does storytelling make utopian ideas more accessible or impactful?
Well, people learn by fiction. I like to read fiction. I like to write fiction because you can sometimes relay messages that people will pick up on than if I just say to you, oh, let's not be greedy. Let's all, you know, have the same thing. It would just go in one ear and right out the other. But if you hear it in a story, it kind of sticks more and you think about it when you're reading it. So I like to put these messages and in all of my books I like to convey hope. I may rip the world apart in my book, but it's always going to end on a note of hope. And I think
The
everyone should have hope.
Yes, indeed, we need hope. People don't lose hope always. Always positive.
And
Did
no matter what trials and tribulations a person's having, there is always hope in this world. That's the one thing that'll never go away. There's always hope.
always hope, people. Did any philosophy books shape your utopia's foundations?
Yes, I've confronted all of the different scenarios. You know, they had to decide who was going to get together with who, and It just so happened that Delilah, one of the other crew members, was someone she knew in college, and they, even though the astronauts, they had to come together and get to know each other. They had to become a team, and they trained together for years, so they were like a family. So when they got up into the sky and they started having their building their families, it was it was the best life they all had.
Miss Jenny, as a best-selling novelist, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My short-term goal is getting through my next novel, which is called Awake, and that's another fun one. My long-term goal is, I have a saying: if you're going to dream, you're going to dream big.
Big.
You shoot
Yes.
for the stars, but if you reach the moon, you got somewhere. I'd like to win a Hugo or a Nebula Award for one of my books. That's one of my dreams.
Congratulations for being best-selling novelist and hoping for that award, Miss Jenny Sunday. Miss Cat Rambo is my, I think, feature author of the month last year. She won the that award, and hoping that you're gonna win too, Miss Jenny.
I'm still
And
working for it.
yes, for sure. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to write their own science fiction novel?
You have to just write and write and write and don't stop writing. When you write one book, you're an author, but you have to write the next book and the next book, and you just have to keep persevering until you make that punch through. It doesn't stop with one book. You got to keep going.
Keep going and going and going and stop procrastinating, people.
And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. It's okay to be scared.
Yes, it's okay. And you will learn from those mistakes if you will commit mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
Did writing this book, Miss Jenny, alter your own daily choices or worldview?
The way that I write, I jump into a book and I don't stop. There are days I'll write 24 hours. I won't get out of my chair except to get something to drink or, just a brief break. And what I do is I put my research together, I do an outline, and then I sit and I write. I'll stop, I'll edit a little bit, I'll edit some more. It's just, it's a process. Every author writes differently. And the way I write, my daughter tells me, "Mom, you're a high functioning person with ADHD," is what she says. I'm the type of person, if you give me one sheet of paper and you say, "Here, do this," it'll never get done. But if you come to me with all these files and plop it down and say it's got to be done now, it'll be done. So what I do is I write 3 books at a time. I have 3 finished manuscripts here I'm working on. And I write on one. And when I get to a point where I guess a person would think it would be writer's block, but I just call it a stopping point. And then I go on to the next book, and the same thing happens. And then I go on to the next book, and then when I'm done with that, then I go back, to the first pile that I started. And my books get done fast. They get done really fast. I use dictation, and then when I go through, I'll do typing and editing. And well, my books, I do them fast. They go fast.
They are very fast. Miss Jenny, how do you respond to readers who call your vision unrealistic?
Unrealistic, is that what you said?
Yes.
Well, I've never been to Mars, and I don't know anyone who's been to Mars. So maybe it is unrealistic. Maybe it is realistic. We won't know till somebody goes to Mars.
True. Totally agree,
But
Miss.
I've learned really early in my writing career, because I had syndicated columns before in the newspapers years ago. I've learned many years ago that you cannot make everyone your fan. You can approach readers, you can engage with readers, but not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. I mean, even your greatest novelists, James Patterson, all of them, they all had 1 star on on Amazon. It's not one writer writes for everybody,
Yes,
and I'm
true.
okay with that.
That's true. If your book plants one seed in readers' minds that could slowly grow toward change, what would you want the seed to be?
I would just like people. I love the word hope. As a matter of fact, one of my characters in Utopia, her name is Tikva, and that's Hebrew for hope. I just want to see hope and unity. Those are the two things I would like people to walk away with my books, because no matter how scary my stories are or how far out there's always hope and unity. When I was a kid, my best friend, her name was Penny Jacobs, and her father was the science fiction novelist Piers Anthony. He's written over 400 books. And I remember as a kid, we were running, he would be at his typewriter and we would be running around. We'd ask him about the book he was writing, and he was talking about a mystical land, and his books always conveyed hope and faith and unity as well. And I guess that's where I picked that up from. It's always been with me.
Miss Jenny, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and of course, my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy
Wow.
101 in its second season, and Food 101 in fifth season too. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science
Oh, I like
101
science.
and Sex 101 in each first season.
Very
Please
good. You're accomplished.
listen. Yes,
That's a lot.
please.
That's a lot. You need to pat yourself on the back. That's a
Y-
lot.
Yes, indeed, Miss Jenny. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Jenny, what's one small, tangible act anyone can do today to live more utopian in our world, inspired by your book?
That's a very easy to answer. In my Jewish faith, whenever we travel, I fold up a dollar bill and I give it to somebody, and I say, "Here, give this to somebody. Give this to charity." And that's what I always do because it always guarantees your safety. So what I do is give charity.
Yes,
And
give
even if it's
charity.
hard, start with a dollar bill. Get like $21 bills and just give them out. It'll be less painful.
Indeed, speaking of uh, giving, please do support my Book 101 Review Foundation, which is I am helping less fortunate children all over the world. Giving education for these less fortunate will be
That's
generation,
wonderful.
our generations to come. So, Miss Johnny, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world.
Thank you
Hoping,
so much.
yes, hoping for more and more and more best-selling books to come, and looking forward for your first award. And please do come over and let's talk about it. And you will be my feature author of the month.
All right, I'm ready for that.
Yes, indeed. So please, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Thank you very much. I would love for you to become a reader.
Yes, and read all the books of Miss Jenny Ahmed. And people, again, let's support Miss Jenny Ahmed, because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books or sci-fi novel books to come. Miss Jenny, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
so much.
More to come, people. See you soon.